The issue with me is always, do I want to be a retro-focused historical fossil, or do I want to really be a cutting-edge, cool guy? I have 8 kids, and when you have that many kids, you get a tremendous amount of feedback about how really lame you are. And so you have to constantly reinvent yourself to try to disprove that. So let me talk a little bit about the history. And the history in the early days really started at an amusement park. I was going to college in electrical engineering, and I worked summers at an amusement park. And I did it really as much to keep from spending money, because I had an advertising business during the day. And this was really where I learned the game business and the arcades at that time. There were mechanical things that were basically things that you'd put a quarter in, sound familiar, and you'd have these slide projectors and you'd play games, and they were actually pretty fun. Then, you know, this was sort of my world. And then there's this guy, and this is Dr. Evans, upon whose shoulders myself, Alan Kay, Ivan Sutherland, we were known as the Utah Geeks. If you were going to play a game or have a computer screen or a video screen connected to a computer in the 60s, there were exactly 4 places in the world. One was Stanford, one was MIT, one was Champaign-Urbana, and one was the University of Utah. Which one doesn't belong? Well, it was the University of Utah. And it was because of this guy. This is a PDP-1. That big round screen in the middle, that was where I played the first Space War. And this is really the chronology. Incidentally, I love this. This is the first time I've given a PowerPoint presentation with the Atari logo. PowerPoint didn't exist when I was running Atari before. So it's kind of fun, you know? Anyway, understand that I was a true geek, and that when I first got married, my wife threw everything that I had in my closet away. And so I'm mere shadow of what I would be if I were left to my own devices. Here's something you didn't know. Atari shipped about 15,000 Pong machines. Ping pong games that were known as Pong, but called Winner and TV tennis and all that, did about 160, 170,000 units. We had less than a 10% market share of our own business. It really pissed me off. And our patents weren't filed and all that sort of stuff. And so what we did is we decided, okay, they can copy us. A lot of guys just Xeroxed our circuit boards. I mean, the problem with Atari was that we could build it in the garage shop. That was the good news. The bad news is anybody with a garage shop could build one too. And so we decided that there was only one strategy that would work for us. We were just going to out-innovate the bastards, and that's what we did. This is a restaurant that I'm doing, and I had some Chuck E. Cheese slides in here, but I thought it wasn't relevant. But Chuck E. Cheese was basically a life support system for a game arcade. You know, that's why the pizza was suck. You know, we didn't care. We wanted those tokens, and we knew the kids didn't care either. And so, you know, you try making a good pizza at a 15% food cost. Come on. But you can make a lot of money. Anyway, that's another story for another time. U-Ink, not trying to follow that category. It was an idea of putting touchscreens on every table. You can instantaneously order your cocktail. So from the time you sat down till the time you had a martini on your desk or your table was as little as 2 minutes, which is, I think, a really good thing. You can order your food, you can modify it, do all kinds of fun stuff. And then you can play games. And the games are solitaire games, games for the table, which you can sort of play against the people you're eating with, but then you can play against the whole restaurant. And it's great fun. In fact, one of the groups that I'm involved with are actually going to have their meeting at our place. And if you have a spreadsheet, the first column is the question, second column is the right answer, third column, wrong answer, fourth column, wrong answer, fifth column, wrong answer. We can then suck that in and it'll make a trivia game for you. So we have birthday parties where it's all about the birthday person. It's hilarious, it's really fun. Anyway, come over there sometime. Of course, you can have beer and wine and stuff. Okay, what's going on today? There's all kinds of economic models. The world is changing and, you know, free to play, play to win. I never ever thought that I could spend hours and hours clicking on things to fill stuff in Mafia Wars. Why was I doing that? It was really stupid, but I was sucked into it. Game wagering, and then of course a lot of the ad-supported stuff that we're doing. But I don't think that's nearly as much fun as to really look at some of the ways that people are playing today. Massive multiplayer online, you know, Call of Duty, Warcraft, StarCraft. The fact that these games are so immersive, you really live in a new world. And I find I have periodically lost my sons. I have 5 boys, and they've all gone through the World of Warcraft miasma, where they basically lose their life for a certain period of time. And we don't see them for dinner or various other things. And then they emerge, sometimes beaten, sometimes bloodied, but always richer for the experience. Mobile gaming. This is really, really an exciting place. All of the world, all the market for phones will be smartphones in 3 years. All. The ones that don't have smartphones wouldn't buy stuff anyway, you know, so forget them anyway. But, you know, the fact that the iPhone and the Android and Nokia was bound to figure out what to do, maybe. But they're going to be moving along. And so I find myself playing a lot of games on my iPhone. I have running chess games with 7 people right now. And we have between 10 and 14 games going at all times. And it's a very interesting metric where you're just sort of playing and having fun. And being it dings and you say, oh, Peter made a move. And the first thing that you learn, never make a chess move at a stoplight. You know, first of all, they honk behind you. And second, you make bad moves. So just if you get into that, stay away from it. Augmented reality, I think, is going to be massive, massive, massive. And what is it really? When you have a GPS-enabled phone, that gives you XYZ. When you have gyroscopes, all of a sudden you have phi rho theta, pitch roll yaw. That means that you fully describe a vector in space. What does that mean? We know what the phone's aimed at. That's really cool. So, what you can do, think about this. The registered sex offender is probably not amused. But the idea that you can have a phone pointed in a particular place is really important, not just for gameplay, but think about going into the Gap and pointing it at a shelf, and it tells you stuff about what's on the shelf, the price, the inventory. Put it into the database so you know how many of extra large or small or what have you. And it's not just commercial. It's all kinds of other stuff. But now, let me go back. GPS-aware games. What you don't realize is that there's an alternative universe right here. It's a dark forest, and it's inhabited by evil monkeys. You can put seeds into this spot, grow trees, fight the monkeys, harvest the fruit, grow trees elsewhere, and pretty soon, if you're diligent and your team is diligent, you can take over the world and perish the evil monkeys. I think this is really going to be important. Think of it as Foursquare meets the evil monkeys. Skill game wagering, people like to gamble. This is estimated to be a $2.4 billion market in 3 years. There's a very interesting thing that's happening, though. We will have legalized gambling in the United States within the next 2 years. You know, governments with this gaping maw of more tax revenue wanted just look at sin less, drastically. I talked a little bit about augmented reality, but this is what all the fashionable geeks are wearing these days. And we're wondering whether or not it's going to catch on, but this is an artist rendering of how the augmented reality headset actually will be working. This is probably 5 years away. Who knows about fiducials? QR codes, anybody seen those? Turns out that there was a big thing in New York, about 4 weeks ago, in which they had QR codes all around the city. You could take your iPhone or your Android, take a picture of them, and all of a sudden it would tell you an augmented version of what was going on. This is Times Square, and this is what they looked like. And it was really fun. The only bad part is about a third of them didn't work. At least they wouldn't for me. But it was an interesting experience of starting to mesh this digital world with the physical world. And it was done by HSB Bank in conjunction with the tennis match. These are more of the things. There's some toys that basically are sensed by the units and then come alive in your world. We've been worrying a lot about how do we really work with connecting our mind, because what we really want to do is when we are in our virtual worlds, we want to keep forgetting that we're physical beings. We want to be really cool and manipulate our world and experience our worlds without having to do with pesky hand gestures and what have you.
The wall between video game marketers and consumers has crumbled.